"It took you long enough," Adam Witmore drawled, not once lifting his gaze from the papers spread before him. "With all due respect, sir, it was a 25-minute ride from the restaurant to this building. Considering the traffic, the rain, and the fact I came by bike, I made it on time," the delivery girl countered, firmly setting the thermal bag onto the polished boardroom table. The silence that followed was colder than the air conditioning. A few executives subtly frowned. One of them let out a nervous cough, attempting to diffuse the palpable tension, but no one dared to speak. Adam, the CEO, widely known as the Icebrain of Wall Street, finally lifted his eyes from the contract. He fixed her with the cold, assessing stare of someone accustomed to judging the world solely through numbers and charts. "This isn't a fast food delivery," he stated, opening the bag with a dismissive sigh. "We're in the middle of a crucial business meeting." The delivery girl, her wet yellow t-shirt clinging from the drizzle and her backpack still dripping onto the pristine floor, crossed her arms. "Ordering gourmet food doesn't mean it's going to drop from the sky," she retorted. An assistant stifled a nervous chuckle, only to receive a swift kick under the table. Adam's brow furrowed. "Do you have any idea how important this meeting is?" he pressed. "Not a clue," she replied, holding her ground. "But I do have a feeling rich people get grumpy when they're hungry, too." Adam looked at the young woman a little longer than he'd intended. She was clearly not the type to shrink in the face of authority. Her eyes were sharp and unafraid, though the tired circles beneath them and her calloused hands still clutching her helmet hinted at a very different, unseen struggle. He picked up a bound document, its pages filled with technical Mandarin characters and notes. "You talk a lot," he said, a sarcastic edge to his voice. "If you're so smart, help us out. Translate this." He dropped the thick bundle on the table with a loud thump. "Go ahead, give it a shot." Everyone in the room turned to her, some curious, others clearly amused. She blinked, took a deep breath, and instead of backing away, she stepped forward. "May I take a look?" she asked. Adam, still surprised she dared to meet his eyes like, pushed the document toward her. She flipped open the first page, reading in silence for a few seconds. The directors exchanged looks, barely concealing their smiles. One of them whispered, "She'll give up in 3 seconds." But she turned to page 2, then page 3. She pursed her lips, then pointed to a section with her finger. "There's a mistake here," she stated without looking up. "This character doesn't belong in a legal context. It's a business term. In this clause it says Party A takes on Party B's liabilities without formal consent. That's insane." The room froze. "Excuse me?" one of the lawyers murmured. She flipped 2 more pages, as if browsing a menu, before ordering. "This contract's a trap. If you sign it as is, Witmore..." Witmore Enterprises takes on the debt of a Chinese subsidiary, one that's very much in the red. Adam leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "You can read Mandarin." "A little better than my Italian," she answered simply. The tension in the room broke like a glass shattering on marble. One of the directors shot up from his seat, quickly pulling the contract closer to double-check what she had pointed out. Another was already furiously typing away on his laptop, researching the companies mentioned. Adam said nothing. He just stared at her. She closed the document, then slid it back across the table. "The food's still hot. The sauce is packed separately from the pasta, just like you asked." "What's your name?" Adam asked quietly. "April. April Johnson. But today I'm just the delivery girl, and I delivered what you asked for." She picked up her backpack, turned on her heels, and walked out without waiting for a response. The door closed, and silence settled again. Adam was still staring at the empty spot on the table. One of the directors, still visibly stunned, finally spoke. "If she's right, she just saved us." Adam exhaled, a rare moment when he had nothing to say. Then, as if waking from a trance, he murmured, "Find out everything about her." The alarm clock went off at 5:20 a.m. It was a soft, old-fashioned ring, the kind that seemed to respect the fragile sleep of someone who didn't really want to wake up, but still always did its job. April Johnson slowly opened her eyes. Before even sitting up, she reached over to turn off the alarm, not because she felt rested, but because she'd already been awake for a few minutes as usual. It was always like this, her body awake before her mind full before her first cup of coffee. Carefully, she got up from the mattress in the corner of the room, making sure not to make any noise, and walked over to her mother's bed. Lying there, with an old blanket pulled up to her chin and breathing with some difficulty, was Donna Johnson. Her eyes were sunken, her skin pale, and an oxygen tube cut across her face like an invisible line between past and present. "It's okay, Mom," April whispered, gently checking the oxygen flow and adjusting the pillow. The small apartment in Crown Heights wasn't exactly a comfortable home, but it was the best they could manage. One bedroom, a cramped living room, a kitchen that barely fit two people at the same time. The bathroom had a shower that creaked, as if complaining about being used. Even so, for April, it was enough, at least for now. She went to the kitchen, heated some water in the microwave, and stirred instant coffee in a cracked cup. She sat at the table, opened her fabric-covered notebook, and picked up a pen. Silently, she started copying sentences from the Russian grammar book she had borrowed from the public library. "Я уч дома." I study at home. She repeated it softly, almost like a prayer. Her books, all from used bookstores or donations, were stacked in the corner of the living room. Dictionaries, grammar books, classic literature, philosophy, technical manuals. An entire world built around a mind hungry for knowledge. April had studied for 2 years at Columbia University, enrolled in a literature program with a focus on linguistics. She consistently earned the best grades in her class, delivered well-received presentations, and even secured a guaranteed spot in an exchange program to Beijing. But then came her mother's diagnosis: advanced pulmonary fibrosis. The scholarship didn't cover medication, rent, or critical medical care. So, April made a decision few people could truly understand. She withdrew from school, polished her resume, and started working. First as a waitress, then a grocery store cashier, and now, an app delivery worker. She juggled 3 different shifts depending on the day. She started early, paused to care for her mom at lunchtime, and went back out until late at night. But she never stopped studying. During breaks, between deliveries, she watched Chinese grammar videos, meticulously wrote down Italian verbs, and delved into academic articles about semantics. In her backpack, books sat snugly next to food containers. The Brooklyn Public Library was her favorite place in the city, not just because it was quiet, but because of the silent promise the books made to anyone who opened them. You can still get there. That day, after caring for her mom, April headed out for another night shift. She was tired, as always, but fiercely determined. The light rain beat down on the streets, and the wind seemed to mock her cheap raincoat. As she pedaled, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened hours before. The meeting room scene, the CEO's piercing look, the contract in Mandarin, the way everyone had stared at her as if she'd pulled a rabbit out of a hat. She didn't regret it. She wasn't sorry, but she wasn't under any illusions either. She knew that single moment wouldn't change her life. Not in that world. Not among those people in suits. They would see her as an oddity, a distraction, a delivery girl who speaks languages. Nothing more. She had seen it happen before. A girl in her French class once scoffed, "You should be a comedian. How did someone from your neighborhood learn 3 languages?" April had laughed on the outside, but inside, she recorded the comment like someone noting an unsolved crime. She was invisible, and when she was seen, it was with surprise or disdain. She cut off the thought there. She needed to focus. She was almost at another luxury building downtown. She checked the order number, went up to the 22nd floor with the bag carefully held in her arms, and rang the bell. A blonde woman answered, distracted by her phone. "You're late," she said, grabbing the bag without even glancing at April's face. "Good evening to you, too," April replied, turning to leave. But before she reached the elevator, she heard the voice. "Wait! You're that girl from Witmore?" April turned slowly. "Depends on what you heard." "I heard you saved $1 million deal speaking Chinese." The woman let out a disbelieving laugh. "Seriously? You're just a delivery worker?" "I am," April confirmed. "And I speak Chinese and French and Italian and a little Russian." "Wow! Someone here is wasting their time." April just gave a small smile and stepped into the elevator. But when she got downstairs, she found something unexpected. A man in a dark blue suit, his jacket wet from the drizzle, leaning against the post by the building entrance. He held a broken umbrella and wore the expression of someone who didn't quite know why he was there. She recognized him immediately. "Is this stalking?" she asked, wiping her face with her jacket sleeve. It was Adam Witmore, the same man who had once challenged her to translate the contract. The same one who had stayed silent while she explained it, clause by clause. And now there he was, standing like a character out of place. "It's not stalking. It's curiosity." "Curiosity?" She laughed. "So now I'm some kind of surprise knowledge delivery?" He took a step forward, looking genuinely unsettled. "You're brilliant, that's all. And you shouldn't be out riding your bike at 11 at night with a backpack full of yakisoba. And you shouldn't be standing on a ledge like you're in a soap opera," she retorted. She walked past him and got on her bike, but before pedaling off, she turned back. "Don't offer me charity, Adam Witmore. I know what it looks like when a millionaire tries to make up for guilt with kindness. I'm not a project." He didn't move. "I'm not offering charity," he said. "I'm offering a challenge." She raised an eyebrow. "What kind of challenge?" "You'll find out soon." April shook her head in disbelief and disappeared into the dark streets. Adam stood there on the curb, realizing that for the first time in a long while he had met someone who truly threw him off balance, and he liked it. At Witmore Enterprises, time was measured in contracts, mergers, and meetings, timed with military precision. His assistants knew better than to knock twice, knew that every second lost could mean millions, and that showing emotion was practically a workplace violation. Laugh? Adam didn't laugh. At most, he made a low sound in his throat when something struck him as vaguely ironic. Even that was rare. The morning after the encounter with April, he showed up at the office earlier than usual. He wore a flawless black suit, as always, and his footsteps echoed across the marble floor like a metronome. Logan, his personal assistant, an efficient, tense young man who seemed powered by caffeine and Excel spreadsheets, was waiting by the private elevator holding a folder. "Good morning, Mr. Witmore," Logan began. The Hosian Group has called 4 times since yesterday. They want an answer about the merger contract with the Beijing branch. They're still pushing, even after the intervention. Adam raised an eyebrow. Yes, sir. They suspect some kind of external interference. They're asking for the name of the Chinese consultant who found the error. Adam held the elevator door and looked at Logan intently. And do we have her name? April Johnson, 25, lives in Crown Heights. Former Columbia student, dropped out in 2020. Works for 3 different delivery apps. No criminal record. No complaints, no registered debt. Adam didn't reply. He just pressed the button and let the doors close. The elevator rose in silence, but Adam's mind was racing. There was something about April he couldn't categorize. It wasn't just her absurd language skills or the sharp comeback she'd delivered in front of the board. It was her composure, her boldness balanced with dignity, that unsettling sense that for the first time someone had disrupted the mathematical logic of his world using nothing but words. That girl, she had disarmed him, and he hated feeling disarmed, but something about her pulled at him, like a complex problem he couldn't leave unsolved. Except April Johnson wasn't a problem. She was an unpredictable variable. At lunchtime, Adam canceled 2 meetings and left the building without telling anyone. His driver was waiting as usual, holding the door open. "Crown Heights," he said without looking at his assistant. The car glided through Manhattan's wet streets into Brooklyn, across busy avenues, suspension bridges, and damp alleys, finally stopping in front of a faded storefront laundry. Nearby, there was an old, red brick building where the windows looked like crooked teeth. Adam looked up and saw a slim figure cleaning a window with a blue rag. It was her. "Wait in the car," he told the driver, stepping out. He climbed the stairs of the old building and knocked on the door of the 3rd floor. Nothing. He knocked again. The door opened. April stood there, her hair in a messy bun, wearing an old gray Star Wars t-shirt and holding a bowl of soup. The surprise on her face lasted less than 3 seconds. "What is this? A secret UN mission?" "I came to talk," Adam said, not sounding very sure of himself. "Right. You, a billionaire CEO, randomly show up at a delivery girl's falling apart apartment." "What is this? Some new Banksy piece? I don't usually do this. Good thing the press wouldn't like it." "Are you always this sharp?" he asked. "Only with people who show up uninvited." Silence. She opened the door a little more. "Come in before the neighbors think I'm trading stocks in the hallway." Adam walked in. The room was small but tidy. There were books everywhere, some stacked, others open with bookmarks. A couch with a faded throw blanket, a nearly dead plant sitting on a shelf, and the comforting smell of soup. Real soup, made with time and necessity. "I thought you lived alone," he said when he saw the photo on the wall. April, still a teenager, next to a smiling woman. "My mom," April said more quietly. "She's in the bedroom resting. We try to keep up appearances as much as we can." Adam sat on the edge of the couch, looking as out of place as a CEO dropped into a reality show. "You're different." "That's what people say when they don't know where to place me." "I came because you threw me off, and that hardly ever happens." April crossed her arms. "Wait, is this some kind of apology attempt?" "Not exactly." "Then what is it? A proposal?" She laughed, a sincere, almost musical laugh. Want to hire me?" "No." "So you want to turn me into some kind of inspiring story for a Forbes article?" "Also no." She stepped a little closer, narrowing her eyes. "Then explain it to me, Adam. What do you want from me?" He paused for a moment, then answered, "I want to understand how someone with your mind chooses to be invisible." That caught April off guard. She bit her lip, looked away, and then replied with a calmness sharper than a shout. Because society already decided people like me are meant to stay behind the scenes. But knowing that doesn't mean I accept it. Adam looked at her for the first time, without arrogance, without the mask. And do you accept it? I survive, I study, and I wait. Silence. Wait for what? A chance or an opening or a typo in destiny. Adam smiled. A small, timid smile. But a real one. I could be that typo. She took a step forward. Maybe you are. He stood up. Can I invite you to a meeting? A real one? Just you and me, coffee, a contract, a conversation. April thought for a few seconds. You can, but under one condition. What is it? You have to take the subway alone and get lost at least once. Adam frowned. Why? Because that's the only way you'll understand what it's like to live in the real world. He hesitated, then nodded. Deal. April held out her hand. It'll be fun watching you try to use a Metro card. He shook her hand, and for the first time in many years, Adam Witmore laughed. Not a polite laugh, not small talk, but a real laugh. Adam Witmore arrived at the subway station at 8 a.m. rush hour in New York, wearing a dark, tailored Italian suit and holding a single-ride ticket like it was an ancient artifact. He looked around as if he'd been dropped into a social experiment. He tried to go through the turnstile with the card facing the wrong way. First try, nothing. Second, still nothing. On. The third try, an impatient woman behind him said, "Flip the card, Wall Street." He flipped it. It worked. 30 minutes later, Adam was climbing the steps of the Brooklyn Public Library, where he had scheduled the informal meeting with April. She was waiting for him on the steps, notebook on her lap, and a cup of coffee in hand. She wore worn-out jeans, a faded hoodie, and had her hair tied up with a pencil. When she saw him, she smiled with her mouth, but teased him with her eyes. "You're sweating. Did you get robbed or just take the wrong train?" "Almost got swallowed by a saxophone player in the car," Adam said, adjusting his tie with wounded pride. "But I think I survived. Congrats." She stood up. "First lesson of the day? The real world has heat, noise, and cranky people. Getting through it is a free MBA." They went inside the library and picked a table in the back between tall bookshelves and a wall outlet that only worked if you wiggled the cord just right. Adam opened a folder. "I looked over some information about you." "Already sounds creepy," April interrupted, sipping more coffee. "I mean, your academic record, your presentations at Columbia." "Your nor translation work. You're brilliant, April." She looked at him seriously. "Brilliant doesn't pay rent or medicine or food. I know. That's why I'm here to offer something more than coffee and compliments." She studied him closely. "I'm listening." Adam took a breath. "I want to create a department of applied linguistics at Witmore Enterprises. A cultural innovation unit. The idea is to prepare materials, contracts, and international projects with multilingual, context-trained professionals. You'd be the lead." April blinked. 3 seconds of silence. "Is this real?" "Completely. With a competitive salary, office, team resources, creative freedom." She looked at the ceiling, then at the table, then back at him. "Are you trying to buy my conscience?" "I'm trying to invest in your talent." April didn't answer right away. She picked up her notebook, scribbled something in the margin, and sighed. "I don't know if I want to go back to the top floor. Not after seeing how they treat the people below." "You wouldn't be going back as a delivery worker. You'd be going as a founder, director, leader." "Even so, they'll look at me strangely." And what do you usually do when people look at you like that? I run with the wind and leave them in the dust. Adam smiled. Do you accept? Not yet. I'll think about it. I need to talk with my mother, my books, and my intuition. They get a vote. Fair enough. They stood up together. Before leaving, Adam hesitated. Would you mind if I came with you on a delivery? She raised her eyebrows. You? In a tie? Climbing stairs with yakisoba? I want to see what you see from down there. She crossed her arms, thinking. All right, but don't complain if the elevator is broken. Deal. That afternoon, Adam swapped his blazer for a borrowed sweatshirt and a ridiculously crooked cap. April almost took a photo just to have proof. Do you know how to ride a bike? She asked. No. Then you get the backpack. The first building was an apartment complex in Williamsburg. 3 floors, no elevator. The customer came down in pajamas, took the food without saying thank you, and went back up without a word. This is the basic level, April said. You deliver, you smile, and you get ignored. Training? Complete. At the second address, a woman complained the soda didn't have ice. I'm the delivery person, not the maker of clouds, April answered, politely sarcastic. Adam was quietly amused. This was another world. But it was at the third stop that everything changed. An elderly woman opened the door with trembling hands. The apartment smelled of incense and mint. She smiled when she saw April. My little language angel. Mrs. Maribel, it's good to see you. Here's your chicken with rice. You know I only order this because you always bring it with a smile. The others just drop it at my door. Don't say that. There are plenty of good people out there. The woman turned to Adam. And you? Her boyfriend? Adam cleared his throat. No, a co-worker. Too well dressed to be a delivery guy, but I like your eyes of someone who's cried in secret. Adam had no answer. Thank you, April. You always make my day better. They left the building in silence. April pushed her bike slowly. Adam walked beside her. She calls you her language angel, he observed. She does, but I'm not. You make people's days better, April, even for those who don't notice. I just deliver food. You deliver more than that. You deliver presents. April glanced at him. You're being too sentimental for a CEO. And you're too sentimental for a rebel. He laughed. Then, we're even. By the end of the day, Adam was exhausted. His shoulders ached, his feet tingled, but he didn't want to leave. He felt he had discovered a new world, a world where numbers didn't explain everything. And April, this invisible girl who changed things without making noise, she was the bridge between those two worlds. The next morning, April showed up at Witmore Enterprises unannounced. She wore a simple blazer, jeans, and sneakers, her hair tied back with a pen, as always. She walked in, passed the front desk with a temporary badge, and went up to the 47th floor. When the elevator doors opened, all the executives looked at her like they were seeing a UFO. She walked straight to Adam's office. He stood up, surprised. April, I thought about what you said, and I accept, but with 3 conditions. Which ones? A fair salary, real autonomy, and an office with a view. Adam smiled. Facing east or toward the sunset? Doesn't matter, as long as they don't put me in the basement again. He held out his hand. Welcome back to the top. She shook it firmly. Only if it's to change the rules of the game. And at that moment, without anyone realizing it, April stopped being invisible and quietly became the most important piece on that board. April Johnson's first day as director of the new Applied Linguistics Division at Witmore. Enterprises felt like something out of a corporate comedy, the kind where no one really knows who's in charge, but everyone pretends to. By 8:45 a.m., she was already seated in her new office with a view of the East River. The chair was too soft, the desk too big. The coffee, though, was as weak as anywhere else in the city. She wore a second-hand black blazer, worn but polished shoes, and a bracelet her mother had made with colorful beads. On the desk, 3 pens, a notepad, and a nearly empty water bottle. In her head, a flood of thoughts. At the door, Logan appeared, Adam's nervous assistant, standing like he'd swallowed an entire code of conduct. "Miss Johnson, good morning. Here's your schedule. You have a video conference with the contracts department at 10 a.m. and a meeting with the tech team at 11:30. They also suggested you review the file on the M&S imports proposal, which is supposed to arrive today for negotiation. Adam asked that you keep a close eye on everything." April raised an eyebrow. "M&S imports. Isn't that the Asian conglomerate that tried to trick you last year with a hidden clause?" Logan looked surprised. Yes, Miss Johnson. Yes, Miss Johnson. But how did you know that?" "I read the report from their last attempt. It was misfiled. I found it last night while digging through the internet. The folder was in human resources, probably by accident or sabotage. Who knows?" Logan looked at her like he had just met a talking panda. "Well, good to know." She gave a half smile. "Breathe, Logan. You always look like you're 5 seconds from bursting." He gave a nervous smile and walked out. April turned back to the screen. She opened the incoming files and started reviewing the M&S imports documents. They were in simplified Mandarin with some terms mixed in from business Cantonese, clearly done to make automatic translation difficult, but she read them like someone enjoying a good recipe book. A little after 11, Adam appeared at the door. He wore a light gray suit and a cautious expression. "I saw you access the HR system at 2 in the morning." "Yes, and before you ask, it wasn't espionage. I just like digging in the drawers no one cleans." "And did you find anything?" "I found a hidden clause in M&S's new contract. If we sign it, we lose the right to unilaterally cancel in case of currency fluctuations, which would basically tie us to them for 5 years even if the dollar crashes." Adam frowned. "That clause wasn't in the English version." "Of course not. They wrote it so it only shows up in the combined character version. It's a tactic known as Liu Kangguan, hiding clauses through cross-referencing. Very rare and very sneaky." Adam leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "And you caught this on your own?" "With some coffee, and the leftover frustration of being called just a delivery girl." Silence. Adam studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Go to the meeting at 3. Bring this with you. Don't hold back." "I thought that was your job." "Today, it's yours." At 3 sharp, April walked into the Witmore Towers meeting room with a tablet in hand and a calm expression. The M&S executives were already seated. 3 men in expensive suits, fake smiles, and shiny leather briefcases. The company's official translator was seated beside them, but April didn't let him start. "We can do this in Mandarin if that's all right with you." The 3 M&S executives looked at each other, one of them muttering, "We weren't expecting that." "No one expects a storm until it hits," April replied. The presentation began. The M&S team tried to dance around the clause. They spoke fast, used technical jargon. One even swapped a character for another on purpose, subtly changing the paragraph's meaning. April not only noticed, she stopped them. Excuse me, but the term here isn't yinli, legal alignment. It's yangli, forced compliance. That changes the entire agreement. The men went quiet. And this clause, paragraph 4.2.7, was left out of the English version. It refers to losing the right to cancel if the currency reference index goes over 7%. That's serious. Adam, seated at the back of the room, had remained silent since April walked in, and he didn't need to. Speak. April owned the room. I propose a new version of the contract, clear, bilingual, ethical, or we can end this now. The three M&S executives exchanged looks. One closed his folder, another simply said, "We'll be back with a different proposal." They left the room, visibly frustrated. The rest of Witmore's board turned to Adam as if looking for confirmation that this had really just happened. He stood up slowly, walked over to April. "You shut them down with 1 sentence and 2 paragraphs. I just read what was there without fear and pointed out what no one wanted to see. There's a name for that," April said. "It's called functional invisibility. We see what the powerful don't, because we live on the floor where the crumbs fall." Adam didn't answer right away, but as he left the room, he turned and said, "You just saved this company from losing tens of millions. And are you giving me a bonus for that?" "No. I'm giving you a bigger challenge." Typical. She smiled. So did he. In the days that followed, April became a hot topic in the company hallways. Some called her a hidden genius, others, Brooklyn's prodigy. Of course, not everyone was a fan, especially those who lost influence and space because of her. But April didn't care about labels. She cared about results and about her mother. Every night she came home, warmed up some soup, read aloud from books to Donna, and shared with a good sense of humor the absurdities of the corporate world. "Today, someone asked if I was self-taught or just full of myself," she said one evening. "And what did you say?" her mother asked, smiling with her eyes. "That I was both." Proudly. Donna laughed, then coughed a little. April gently held her hand. "One day, Mom, you're going to see me teaching French on a stage, and you'll get a standing ovation." April kissed her mother's forehead and smiled. "Or they'll say I'm too dramatic. But that's okay. I was born for the spotlight." The next morning, when she got to the office, there was a note on her desk. "Mission accomplished. New mission awaits. Meeting room 3B. Bring your sense of humor and your best language. Signed, Adam." She rolled her eyes but went. Meeting room 3B was the smallest space in Witmore Enterprises. Technically, a quiet, co-working area with 3 uncomfortable chairs, a broken projector, and a stained wall no one ever bothered to repaint. April walked in expecting a corporate trap. Instead, she found Adam with 2 coffees, an open laptop, and a city map spread out on the table. "Good morning," he said without looking up. "Good morning, it's 7:43 a.m. This should be illegal." "I thought geniuses didn't sleep. They don't sleep much, but they dream big," she shot back, pulling up a chair. Adam pointed to the map. "The Social Projects Department is trying to partner with local nonprofits. The problem is most of the contracts are poorly written, ambiguous terms, legal mistakes, and clauses that create conflict." "And you want me to fix everything?" "I want you to go there, see it for yourself. Understand the language they use, literally and emotionally." April stared at the map. "You want to take me out of the air conditioning and send me into under-resourced neighborhoods?" "I want to take you down from the pedestal they've put you on since the last big contract. Geniuses need to remember where they came from." She gave a sideways smile. "I never forgot." "You did," Mr. CEO with a driver and gourmet coffee. That's why I'm going too. She raised an eyebrow. Seriously? I'll take the subway. I'm an expert now. Careful. Pickpockets wear suits these days. Their first stop. A non-profit called Words That Save, located in an old-school building in the Bronx. It served at-risk children and newly arrived refugees. For many of them, English was their fourth or fifth language. April walked in like she was coming home. She greeted an older Haitian woman in French, helped a Pakistani child with homework in Urdu, translated an urgent message for a crying Nigerian girl who didn't understand where she was. Adam watched her silently. She wasn't putting on a show. She wasn't waiting for praise. She was serving, truly. By late afternoon, they were sitting on the sidewalk eating 2 stuffed poopuses from a street cart. "You're remarkable," Adam said sincerely. "I'm what the system didn't expect, and what I didn't predict." She wiped her fingers with a paper napkin. "As a CEO, you see charts. I see faces. Numbers lie. People don't." Adam was quiet for a moment. "Why didn't you go back to Columbia?" She sighed. "Because my mom got sick. Because scholarships didn't cover medication. Because the electric bill came due before the semester ended. I could pay for your studies now. I don't need you to pay. I need you to fix the system that makes people like me choose between a degree and dignity." The next day, April was called into an urgent meeting with the company's legal department. When she arrived, she found 3 lawyers, a contract on the table, and a pile of baseless accusations. "They're saying you violated policy by representing the company in external environments without formal authorization," said the lead attorney, a man with a neatly trimmed mustache and a cold stare. "I represented dignity, not the company," April replied. "That could lead to legal action." She crossed her arms. "You know what costs more than lawsuits? Ignoring reality." Adam walked into the doorway. "Everything okay here?" "Apparently not," April answered. "They're trying to silence me for doing more than what my job description allows." Adam looked at the lawyers. "You're dismissed now?" They left, clearly unhappy. Adam walked closer to April. "They have no authority to intimidate you. And if they did, they just lost it." She looked him in the eye. "Are you really going to back this?" "I'm going to back you." That night, when she got home, April found her mother having a coughing fit. The oxygen tube had come loose. She called emergency services, helped stabilize her, and sat by the bed, hands shaking. "I can't lose you now, Mom," she whispered. Donna squeezed her hand tightly. "You're flying, my girl. I just want to see where you'll land." 2 days later, Adam invited her to a casual event on the company rooftop. April showed up wary in a denim jacket and black pants, and found a group of young people from different parts of the world, all from the non-profits they had visited. On a big screen was the new project the company had launched, Witmore Voices, a program for support, education, and translation for refugees and language minorities. April looked at Adam. "Is this real?" "It's yours. I just signed it." She blinked, swallowing back tears. "And how did you get this past the shareholders?" "By lying a little. I called it a strategic cultural expansion initiative, but really it's the truest project I've ever done." April stepped closer. "You're changing. You made me." She smiled. "And you did the same for me." He looked her in the eyes. "What do you think about going further?" "Further than what?" "Further than the meeting room. Further than reports. Further than—" "You're different." April took a deep breath. That sounds dangerously like feelings. What if it is? She moved closer, her eyes shining. Then we'll need to negotiate the terms and the clauses. Just one, absolute honesty. They smiled, and in that moment, with no signed contract, no witnesses, no badges or suits, they made the biggest agreement of their lives. A group of young people came over shyly. "Are you the girl from the project?" asked a girl with colorful braided hair, maybe around 12. April crouched down and smiled. "I'm one of them, but you all will be the stars from now on." The girl smiled, holding a flyer that read, "Your voice matters" in 5 languages. "Do you speak all of these?" "I speak a little, but what matters is listening." The girl gave a thumbs up. "You're nice, just like my teacher in Ethiopia." April laughed. "That's an honor. I hope one day I deserve that comparison." The child ran back to the group. Adam, beside her, watched with an expression he rarely showed. Genuine calm. Not the kind that comes after a signed contract, but the kind that only comes when you know you did the right thing. "I wonder," he began, holding an iced tea, "how something that started with lunch on the sidewalk can turn into a global project." "It starts with bitter bread and ends with courage," April said, "and a little insomnia and anger at the system. And lots of faith." She looked at the sky. "Faith, too. But faith with action." He nodded. "Can I ask you a hard question?" "You already started." "Do you believe in me?" She slowly turned to look at him. "No, not yet." Adam seemed hit by those words, but didn't back away. "Fair. And what do I need to do to change that?" "Stop doing things for show and start doing them for purpose." "And will you know the difference?" April gave a small smile. "I always know." Later, when they returned to the company building, the two of them got stuck in the elevator because of an electrical failure. They spent 37 minutes with alarms, emergency calls, and awkward silence. "This is new, Adam said. "Stuck here with you. No network, no reports, no one to save." "Do you always try to save someone?" "I've always tried to save myself, to be honest." April leaned against the wall of the elevator, arms crossed. "And is it working?" "I don't know, but today I don't recognize myself as much as yesterday, and that might be a good sign, or it might be an existential crisis. Have you ever thought about being a motivational speaker?" "I once thought about being an astronaut, if that helped." They both laughed. The elevator shifted slightly. Adam stepped a bit closer. "You know, this whole project, this mission, this change, it wouldn't have happened without you." "I know, and that's exactly why I'm still here." "What do you mean?" "Because if I leave now, I lose the chance to change the top. But if I stay, I risk becoming what I fought so hard against." Adam looked at her seriously. "I won't let that happen." She turned her gaze away. "You can't promise that." "No, but I can fight beside you." The elevator came back to life with a jolt, and the lights came on. The doors opened, but the two of them stayed there just a moment longer than necessary. The next evening, April went back to visit the Words That Save NGO. It was the graduation for a small group of young refugees who had learned English and were getting ready to enter public school the following semester. She was called up to hand out the certificates. At the end, one of the students, a 16-year-old girl named Zara, read a note written with help from the volunteer translator. "When I got here, I didn't even know how to say hello. Now, I want to become a lawyer, because the lady who spoke like me made me believe I can." April held the paper and cried without fear, without shame. Donna, her mother, watched from the front row with an oxygen tank beside her and a look of pure pride. At the end of the event, the two of them hugged. "I saw you shine, my daughter," Donna said. "It was just a spark, but even the sun starts that way." Later that day, back at home and changing clothes, April got a message from Adam. "Tomorrow, rooftop, 8 a.m., facing east. Bring courage." She looked at herself in the mirror. For the first time in months, she liked what she saw. Not because of the clothes, not because of the hair, but because of the woman standing there, whole. She smiled and replied, "I'll be there." She laughed to herself. She knew something important was coming, but she had no idea what he was about to say or how it would change everything. The sky over New York was turning orange when April arrived at the rooftop of Witmore Enterprises. It was cold, but pleasant, the kind of morning that felt like it wanted to whisper good news to anyone who'd listen. She wore a beige coat tied at the waist and worn-out boots that had survived more than 60 miles of biking around the city. Her hair, pulled into a loose bun with a blue pen, moved gently in the breeze. Adam was already there. He wore a light blue shirt, no tie, unusual for him. He was alone, leaning on the glass railing, watching the traffic below like he was trying to decode a hidden language. On a small round table, 2 cups of jasmine tea, and a brown folder with the company seal. April approached slowly, cautious like a stray cat near fresh food. "Good morning. I hope this surprise invite doesn't involve corporate bungee jumping." "Not this time," Adam smiled, "though I did consider hiring a jazz band just for effect." She sat down. "All right, you win for dramatic build-up. Now let's hear it." Adam slid the folder toward her. "Read it." April opened it. Inside was a 2-page contract. Straightforward, no fine print, no legal traps. She read it silently, eyes scanning every line with the focus of a magnifying glass. Then she looked up. "You're kidding me, right?" "I've never been more serious. This is an offer to become the company's vice president of social innovation." "Exactly." "This is insane. I agree. I'm young. I don't have a degree. I'm not part of the corporate circle." "That's exactly why I want you." She ran a hand through her hair. "Vice President, Adam, isn't it too soon? You think in ways no one here does. You read where others skim. You translate what others overlook. And most important, you feel. And you teach others to feel, too. That's not a title. That's a minefield. And you're the only one who can walk through it without blowing it up." April let out a dry laugh. "What if it all goes wrong?" "Then it's on me." She looked out at the view. "You know this won't go over well, right?" "Of course. The shareholders will call me crazy, the executives will roll their eyes, and the press will say I fell for a delivery girl and gave her a title." She looked him in the eyes, serious. "And did you fall for me?" Adam held her gaze, thought before answering. "I'm learning to admire deeply. As for falling, maybe I'm on my way, but if I am, I want to do it right." April looked away. "This changes everything, or starts everything." She closed the folder. "I need time. You have until the end of the week." "That's generous." "I pretend to be fair when I want to look human. And you want to look human with me?" "I want to be human with you." April smiled. "You're starting to learn the right words, but you still miss the tone." He laughed, and for the first time in a long while, he looked at ease. That afternoon, April went home with her head spinning. Donna was in the living room watching a Venezuelan soap opera with auto-generated English subtitles. "Mom," April began, taking off her coat, "I can tell you've got that look. Like someone just made you a scandalous offer. It's not scandalous, but it's risky. What is it? April sat down and told her everything. The offer, the VP title, the board's likely reaction, the risk. Donna listened silently. When April finished, she simply said, "Take it." Just like that? Sweetheart, you've spent your whole life waiting for a crack in the door. Now it's open. Walk through it, with both feet before they shut it again. And if they tear me down, then you rebuild. But at least you won't blame yourself for hiding. April took a deep breath, and in that moment, she decided. 2 days later, she showed up at Adam's office with an envelope in her hands. He saw her come in and stood up. "Already? You gave me until the end of the week, but I'm impatient." She held out the envelope. "This is my answer." He opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one handwritten sentence. "I accept, but just so we're clear, I'm still a deliverer of essence." Adam smiled. "Is that supposed to be poetic?" "It's a warning. I haven't changed. I've just expanded." He held out his hand. She shook it. The news about the new vice president sent shockwaves through Witmore Enterprises. Business websites called it the boldest HR move of the decade. Society columns speculated about a secret romance. Financial analysts questioned Adam's sanity. But none of them knew what was really happening inside. April stepped into the role with ease. Meetings flowed more naturally. Social projects became central. Young talent found their voice, and the company's culture started to shift, slowly but clearly. Some called her an outlier, others a miracle. Adam knew she was both, and more. One evening, after a charity event, the two of them found themselves alone on the balcony. They were dressed in formal wear, but there was something unguarded about both of them. "Cold?" he asked. "No, I've got too much going on inside to feel the weather outside. Thinking about running. Thinking, maybe I jumped into a sea I don't even know how to swim in." Adam looked at her. "If you start sinking, I'll jump in after you. And if I pull you down with me, then we go down together. But at least we tried." April smiled. "That sounds dangerously romantic." "I wouldn't do that, not yet, not while you're still building wings." "What if I'm already flying?" "Then teach me." They looked at each other for a long moment, but there was no kiss. Not yet. It was too soon for that, but too late to go back. And so, with one signature and a leap into the unknown, April Johnson, former delivery worker, daughter of a retired nurse, self-taught language lover, became one of the most unexpected leaders in New York's corporate world. But the biggest revolution was still to come, and it would come from where no one expected. April Johnson's appointment as Vice President of Social Innovation at Witmore Enterprises seemed at first like a bold and inspiring move. But within a week, it became fuel for a behind-the-scenes fire. Meetings were interrupted by sideways glances. Executives whispered in the hallways like they were trading secrets. Reports started showing up late. Strategic meeting invites just happened to miss the new VP. April noticed everything. She'd already lived through the poisonous silence of social exclusion in classrooms, diners, and hospital lines with her mother. That look that says, "You don't belong," was all too familiar. Except now it wore a Hermes tie. "Feel the tension?" Logan whispered as she crossed the executive floor. "Yeah, feels like someone let a political onion rot into the carpet." "They're nervous, April. No one thought you'd last beyond 2 lattes and a LinkedIn post. Now that you're actually changing things, the games have started. I've played this game before. Back where I grew up, we called it silent humiliation. Logan hesitated, then leaned in closer. If you need an informant, I'm in. I like a little danger, and they don't pay me nearly enough to pretend I'm neutral. April laughed. Is this our first corporate resistance alliance? If it is, I want a code name, something like Operation Yakisoba. She tried to stay serious, but ended up laughing for real. The next morning, a meeting with Witmore's external investors had been scheduled. Adam couldn't attend. He was away at an international forum which left April to lead the presentation. She arrived early, well prepared with graphs, data, and a carefully written pitch. The room was filled with men in suits and two women, one clearly bored, the other looking at April like she was a confused intern. During the presentation, she was interrupted 3 times. The first, they questioned her formal experience in management. The second, they implied that social results might just be an inefficient trend. The third, they chuckled when she mentioned a project developed in partnership with a non-profit in an underserved neighborhood. April took a deep breath. She didn't lose her composure. I understand that my presence here makes some people uncomfortable, she said firmly. I didn't come from Harvard, I don't have an MBA from Switzerland, but I know the ground you've never walked on. And that's where this company meets vision. Silence. And more than that, innovation isn't about preserving the status quo. It's about breaking patterns that only benefit the ones already seated at the table. And I built my own chair. The woman who had looked bored finally raised her eyes and smiled. A subtle smile, but real. After the meeting, April walked out with steady steps. She still felt the weight of their judgment, but carried something stronger. Conviction. Hours later, Logan showed up in her office with a folded piece of paper. Fresh information. I just heard it in the break room. One of the directors, Mr. Martell, is trying to organize a motion to limit your authority over social initiatives. They're coordinating by email, but using code names to make it harder to track. Code names, April mused. Exactly. You're the variation. Adam is the misstep. How creative. Want me to hack it? No, let them waste energy scheming. Meanwhile, we deliver results. But April knew this was just the beginning. The next day, something unexpected happened. As she was leaving the company, she was approached by a short woman with neatly cropped white hair and a dark green dress. April Johnson? Yes. I'm Sylvia Norrington, director of the Urban Life Foundation. I read about you in the city paper. We need to talk. April didn't know if she should defend herself or say thank you. Sylvia smiled. Relax. I'm not here to sabotage you. I'm here to offer a partnership. 2 hours later, they were sitting in a simple cafe in Harlem. Sylvia was direct, smart, and had no patience for niceties. We work with displaced families, immigrant women, and LGBTQIA+ youth who've been kicked out of their homes. We build support, networks, but we're missing structure, connections, and a platform. And what do you want from me? I want you to use your new position to open doors. We have the impact. You have the access. April thought for a moment. I'm in, but with one condition. Which one? No decorative charity. If Witmore uses our image, the change has to be real. Sylvia extended her hand. We have a deal. When April got back to the office, she was excited, but she was met with an email titled Skills Review and Sector Restructuring. Inside was a cold message. Based on recent performance feedback and concerns about decision-making centralization, we ask that the Social Innovation Vice Presidency now report directly to the Executive Board. Translation. They were trying to strip April of her authority. In practice, it was a power grab. She closed the laptop, looked out the window, and sent a short message to Adam. "They're playing dirty. We need to talk when you're back." Minutes later, he replied with a voice message. "Hold on. I'm at the airport already. We're going to turn this around." But April didn't wait. The next morning, she called an emergency meeting with the project leaders, partner directors, and 3 representatives from NGOs that had received company funding in recent months. The room was packed. "I know I'm not the traditional leadership profile here, but I'm not here to please investors. I'm here to make change. If they try to cut this bridge, the city loses." She showed data, videos, testimonials, social impact metrics. In the end, they gave her a standing ovation. That was when Martel walked in. Silence. He looked uneasy. "May I speak?" he asked, trying to sound calm. "Go ahead," April replied. "This is all nice, but the real world requires balance. Our company has to think about profit." "Profit without conscience is just theft in a suit," she shot back. Some people laughed. Martel swallowed hard and left. Hours later, Adam came into April's office. "I saw the video of the meeting. It was already circulating before I landed. You shut Martel down with 1 sentence and an infographic. And yet, he's still here." "Not for long. I just came from the board, and I brought you a present." He handed her an envelope. She opened it. It was an official letter from the board reversing the limitation on her role and confirming her full authority as vice president. April smiled. "We won the first battle. And now we build without asking permission." That night, Adam walked her to the subway. No armored cars, just 2 tired, happy people in a city that had crushed them in different ways and now had brought them to the same platform. "Did you notice?" he said. "What? We're becoming an example. There are people out there starting to believe because you're at the top. That's dangerous. That's necessary." She looked at him sideways. "Are you still in transit?" she asked about what he felt about all of this. Adam took a deep breath. "I think I'm already at my destination. I just don't know if you'll be waiting for me at the exit." She smiled. "Anyone who's walked in the dark knows the value of the light." A light rain was falling over Brooklyn when April got off the subway that Saturday morning. It was supposed to be her day off, at least in theory, but someone like her couldn't just stay home when there were people who needed help. With her earbuds in and a folder of documents in her backpack, she walked toward a small building with peeling paint and foggy glass windows. That's where Mrs. Gracie Ella lived, a 68-year-old immigrant from Ecuador who sold empanadas in the park and for the past 2 weeks had been facing eviction over a lease she barely understood because it was written in legal English full of hidden clauses. "It's like I signed without even knowing," the woman had said the last time they met. April looked into the case on her own. She discovered that the building's new owner was a real estate investment fund that bought old properties and pushed out vulnerable tenants by exploiting loopholes in their leases. Graciela had until today, 2 p.m., to appear before a judge in small claims court. It was 1:27 p.m. April walked into the courthouse with a racing heart and wet shoes. The courtroom was full. Graciela, hunched in a corner, held a plastic folder with crumpled papers and a crucifix in her hands. "I'm here," April whispered, sitting down beside her. "They have a lawyer. I don't. I'm going to lose. Not with us here." "Us?" Graciela looked around. April was the only one who'd come, but that didn't matter. "I brought a dictionary, a few laws, and a little courage. That'll have to be enough." At 1:58 p.m., the case was called. The attorney for the real estate group was young, well-dressed, and carried a thick folder of documents. "Your Honor," he began, "this is a straightforward contractual matter. The tenant, by signing the agreement, waived the automatic renewal clause. We're simply enforcing what was agreed upon." April stood up. "Your Honor, with your permission, I'd like to speak on behalf of Mrs. Graciela." The judge, a gray-haired man with an experienced look, raised an eyebrow. "Are you an attorney?" "No. I'm vice president at Witmore Enterprises and a specialist in multilingual contracts. I've personally reviewed this document, and there are serious issues." The opposing attorney chuckled softly. "This isn't a press conference, nor is it a circus," April replied. "But the lease in question contains vague language and was provided only in English, although the tenant primarily speaks Spanish. The key clause is printed in small font with technical terms that were never explained. That goes against the basic principle of good faith in contracts." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do you have evidence?" April pulled a file from her backpack, stapled pages marked with yellow highlighter, along with a copy of the lease full of notes. "Here it is. I compared it with the city's standard lease template and prior rulings and similar cases. This document is written in a way that confuses, not clarifies." The room went quiet. Even the opposing lawyer seemed thrown off. "In addition," April continued, "we have testimony from neighbors and a transcript of the conversation where the agent said, 'Just sign. It doesn't change anything.' Graciela had no assistance, no translation. That's not signing. That's a trap." The judge reviewed the documents. He spent 5 minutes flipping through them carefully. Then he let out a long breath. "I agree there are inconsistencies in the contract and signs of bad faith in how it was handled. The eviction is suspended. The tenant will remain in the apartment until a new hearing is held, this time with legal support." Graciela covered her mouth, overwhelmed. The attorney closed her folder, clearly upset. April hugged the older woman. "You're not going anywhere today," Graciela cried. "Gracias, gracias, mi angel." April smiled. "I just translated what was already screaming in silence." When they left the courthouse, April didn't expect to see camera flashes, but they were there. Some reporter had been tipped off, maybe even by someone from the real estate group trying to expose the activist VP from Witmore. But the effect was the opposite. The image of April holding the documents and hugging the elderly woman went viral within hours. Witmore. VP challenges eviction and wins in court with facts and empathy, read the day's most shared headline. Comments spread across social media. "This woman is what every CEO should be. She didn't climb to the top. She brought the top to the people. If courage were a job title, she'd already be president." Adam, who was in a meeting at the time, got a phone alert. When he opened it, he saw the photo. He sat quietly for a few seconds, then smiled. Later that same day, April was called in for a private meeting at the company's headquarters. When she arrived, she found Adam in the conference room with 3 board members and the communications team. "You okay?" he asked, still holding his phone. "I'm good. Tired, but good." "This blew up," said one of the communications directors. "We've got international media asking to interview you. You just helped a woman who couldn't understand her lease, and by doing that, you made headlines," Adam added. April sighed. "You know what's the craziest part? It's not seeing myself in the newspapers. It's that for the first time I wasn't afraid to speak up or to be heard." A respectful silence fell over the room. Adam stood up and looked her in the eyes. "You did what no one else here had the courage to do. And you did it without needing permission." "Reality doesn't wait for a badge to hurt," she replied. Effective today, Adam declared. Every Witmore division handling real estate or social contracts will undergo a language review, and you will be the overall supervisor. That's a lot. April's eyes widened. It's only the beginning. On her way home, April received an unexpected call. Hello? Is this April Johnson? This is Judge Martha Ellis from the Civic Court. I just wanted to say congratulations, not for winning, but for how you handled the case. You reminded all of us why justice exists. April held the phone for a moment, her eyes misting. Thank you, Your Honor. Keep it up. Make noise wisely. At home, Donna was watching TV when April walked in. I've seen it, her mother said without looking away. They're calling you the lawyer without a degree. I prefer justice interpreter. Donna laughed, and with a lot more style. Later that night, Adam sent a message. Do you still think you don't belong here? April replied, I'm not sure I belong, but I know I'm needed. He answered with one word. Exactly. She smiled, and in that smile there was a new certainty. She didn't need a title to have. Power. She was already powerful because she knew exactly how to use it. The following week was a whirlwind. After the hearing with Mrs. Graciela and the public reaction, April Johnson became the face of a change no one expected, least of all her. She was everywhere: interviews, thank you emails, invitations to events she would once have been shut out of because of her address. Columbia University even reached out again, offering an institutional reconnection with retroactive honors. But inside her, something was growing heavy. The exposure, the expectations, the loneliness of decision-making, the fear of losing herself in it all. It felt like instead of growing into the role, she was shrinking under the weight of representing thousands of invisible voices without ever making a mistake, without ever failing, without being allowed to just be human. On Tuesday morning, she looked at herself in the company restroom mirror and saw a tired face, sunken eyes, hair hastily pulled back, an expression that no longer matched the girl who used to bike the streets with a backpack and courage in her heart. She returned to her office, sat in her swivel chair, and stared out at the city. New York hustled on, indifferent. Donna was worse. Hospital visits were becoming more frequent. April barely had time to breathe, let alone care for the woman who had given her everything. She picked up a piece of paper and began writing by hand. Dear members of the board, thank you deeply for the opportunity you've given me. But at this moment, I need to remember who I am and go home. She signed it, folded it, and put it in her pocket. That was it. Time to leave. That night, she walked home slowly. When she entered, she found Donna asleep on the couch, the oxygen tank beside her and a blanket over her shoulders. She sat down carefully, not wanting to wake her, and just stayed there, watching, listening, feeling. Her phone buzzed. A message from Adam. Can I see you? She hesitated, then replied, Tomorrow afternoon, the park bench across from the building. No suits. The next day was overcast. April arrived first. She sat on the bench, arms crossed, staring at the buildings ahead as if they were unreachable peaks. Adam showed up exactly on time in dark jeans, a simple shirt, and sneakers that clearly weren't his usual style. I like the disguise, she said, without taking her eyes off the street. I'm trying to look human, remember? Silence. She took the envelope from her pocket and handed it to him. What's this? My letter of resignation. Adam read it slowly. When he finished, he folded it carefully and slipped it into his shirt's inner pocket. Why now? Because I'm tired of being a symbol. Sometimes, I just want to be me. You don't have to leave to be that. Yes, I do. I climbed this mountain by motorcycle, but now it feels like they're asking me to pilot a plane without instructions. They didn't give you instructions because no one has ever reached where you've gone. April. But I don't want to be a pioneer forever. I just want to breathe. Adam took a deep breath. What if I ask you to stay? I'd be like everyone else, trying to convince me I'm more useful alive than free. No, he said. I don't want you to stay for the company, or for the cause, or for me. I want you to stay if you want to build something with me. For the first time that day, she looked him in the eyes. What do you mean by that? He sat down beside her. I tried to hold back. You had so much going on. And I thought it would be selfish to get close, but I fell in love with you. April swallowed hard. That's not fair. I know, but it's the truth. You're my boss. I used to be. Now I'm just a guy on a park bench talking to the most incredible woman he's ever met. She laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. And what if I told you I feel something too? That my heart races every time you walk into a room? Then we'll run together. And what if I lose myself in the middle of all this? I'll help you find your way. And if I get lost, you'll show me how to get back. She was quiet for a long time. Then she took the envelope back from his hands. I'm not going to tear it up, but maybe I'll hold on to it for now. That's enough. He held her hand. You don't have to decide everything right now. Just breathe. And she did. For the first time in days. Deeply. Slowly. Good thing you didn't show up in a suit. I might have punched you. Lucky I'm in jeans and those sneakers. Hideous. And still you like me. She shook her head. Idiot. Vice President? Idiot. Exactly. They laughed together. And in that moment, no kiss, no background music, no grand promises. They knew something new had begun. The next day, April returned to the company. She didn't announce her decision. She just walked into the office as if she had never left. And everyone respected that. The looks changed. The smiles were warmer. Even Martell, her toughest critic, now treated her with a forced politeness that was almost funny. That afternoon, while she was typing a report, Logan came in with 2 cups of coffee. So are you staying for now? And Adam, for now too. So that means, it means, for now could become forever, but only if it's light, only if it's real. Logan smiled. I knew you were smart. Didn't know you were a poet too. Don't spread that around. It might ruin my reputation as the contract wizard. That night, she went home and found Donna awake. You're back. I'm back. And any news? April took the letter, now folded several times, and placed it at the bottom of a drawer. Just one thing for sure. What's that? That my place is exactly where my voice still makes people uncomfortable. Donna smiled. Then make them uncomfortable with love. On her office computer, April created a new folder, Internal Revolution. Inside it, she started a new document titled, How to Change the World Without Losing Yourself. First line, start with a backpack, a dream, and a sharp tongue. Then, find someone who believes and never stop. It was a warm Friday in New York. Not the kind of heat that melts asphalt, but the kind that comes with late spring, a heat that smells like hope. The trees in front of the Words That Save Foundation were blooming, and the whole neighborhood seemed to hum with quiet anticipation. April was nervous, more than she'd ever been in a board meeting or on TV. The NGO was holding the closing ceremony for the Witmore Voices program, the one she had helped create, shape, and expand. Now, 6 months later, it was the first graduation. In the audience, mothers with colorful headscarves, fathers holding up cell phones to film, young people in simple clothes, but with shining eyes. There were volunteer translators, posters in many languages, and a mural with flags from the countries represented: Haiti, Syria, Mexico, Ukraine, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Colombia. And in the middle of it all, April. She wore a dark blue dress with loose sleeves and her hair in a side braid, no heels, no heavy makeup. She wanted to show up just as she was, authentic, seen. She was there as a mentor and as living proof that breaking through the no-place barrier was possible. Next to her were Sylvia Norrington, the NGO director, and 3 Witmore board members. But Adam wasn't there. He had traveled that week to a conference in Zurich. He had sent a message of support, but April felt his absence like a space left open in her chest. She tried not to dwell on it. "Ready?" Sylvia asked. April took a deep breath. "I always was. People just needed to believe it." She stepped onto the stage, holding the microphone with both hands. The makeshift auditorium went silent. 6 months ago, this project was considered a risk. People said it was too much philanthropy, that young people from the margins don't want to learn languages, or that refugees don't have time to study. She looked at the graduates. "Today you proved them wrong. You didn't just learn, you're teaching." One student, 17 years old, shouted, "You made us believe." She smiled. "And you gave me a reason to stay." Just then, the back door opened quietly, without drawing attention. Adam walked in. He wore a dark blazer and a white shirt, no tie, his gaze intense, his posture relaxed. He held an envelope in his hand. He stopped near the wall at the back of the room and simply watched. April continued. "My story may not be a typical one. I was a delivery worker. I was invisible. I was underestimated. But today, standing here with all of you, proves that even the top can learn to speak with a different accent." Applause broke out. People were crying. A woman stood up and said, "April, you're the voice we never had." She closed her eyes for a second, took a breath, and said, "And now, I want to introduce one of the people who made all this possible. A man who, despite seeming arrogant and terrible at showing emotions, had the courage to take a risk and to change. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Adam Witmore." The entire room turned to the back. Adam slowly walked down the center aisle. He nodded at a few people. He stepped up onto the stage without looking directly at April, not until the very last second. When their eyes met, time seemed to stop. He held the envelope tightly. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice calm and steady. "I didn't come here today as a CEO. I came as someone who learned from this woman beside me, and from all of you. In the corporate world, we're trained to look at numbers, predict trends, hit targets, but none of that prepared me to meet a soul like April Johnson's." April swallowed hard. Her eyes welled up. Adam went on. "She taught me that intelligence doesn't come with a zip code, that talent doesn't wear a suit, and that empathy might just be the most revolutionary policy of all." He opened the envelope. "And that's why today I officially announce the creation of the April Johnson Institute for Social Linguistics. Yes, it will be part of Witmore Enterprises, but it will have full independence, and April will be its founder, president, and project leader." The room erupted in applause, cheers, and whistles. April covered her mouth with her hand. The tears came freely. Adam turned to her. "And if you accept, I want you to be not just the heart of this project, but its guiding light, the example you already are for so many people." She couldn't speak for a few seconds. Then she picked up the microphone. "I accept." The roar from the crowd echoed against the walls. April and Adam hugged, a long, quiet hug full of meaning. She whispered in his ear, "That was a movie-worthy comeback, and the leading lady deserves a happy ending. We're not done yet. Then let's write the rest together." After the event, out in the courtyard of the non-profit, with kids running around, pictures being taken, and families celebrating, Adam and April sat off to the side. "You know what's the craziest part?" she said. "I used to think my biggest fear was failing, but I think it was being seen. And now I see myself too." He held her hand. "There's something I haven't done yet." "What's that?" "This." And then he kissed her. A gentle, quiet, honest kiss. No audience, no cameras, no script. Just a kiss between two people who came from different worlds but ended up in the same place. In the days that followed, the story of the April Johnson Institute went viral. TV shows, speaking invitations, international interest, record-breaking donations. But April stayed the same. She still took the subway. She still visited Mrs. Graciela. She still brought her mom soup on Wednesdays. Only now she had a foundation and a partner. Adam, in turn, stepped down as CEO a few months later, as he had already planned. He was ready for a new chapter, one with more humanity and more connection. At his final company meeting, he gave a simple speech. "They say love makes leaders weak. But if that's true, then I hope we're all weak, because only with love can we build something that truly matters." One night at home, Donna looked at a photo of her daughter on the nonprofit's wall and smiled. "You became everything I never dreamed of saying, but always knew you were." April kissed her on the forehead. "I'm still your daughter. I just have more paperwork to sign now." Donna laughed. "And you kissed a CEO!" "Oh, Mom." They both burst out laughing. On the wall of the new institute, a phrase engraved in golden metal. "Languages build bridges, but love is what crosses them." Signed, April Johnson. The day began gray in New York. Not the kind of sky you'd hope for on a wedding day. But April Johnson was happy. Happy in a way that had nothing to do with the color of the sky, or the brightness of the sun, or the weather forecast. It was a peaceful kind of happiness, grounded like roots, the kind that comes from finally knowing everything makes sense. She was in a room at the Words That Save Foundation where the wedding would take place. She had decided she wanted something simple. No fancy hotels, no golden chandeliers, no red carpets. She wanted to get married where love had first turned into purpose. She wore a white dress with short sleeves, a V-neck, and hand-embroidered lace made by immigrant mothers who had been part of the project. On her feet, white sneakers. In her hair, wildflowers. There was no heavy makeup, no expensive jewelry, but her eyes had never shone brighter. Donna, her mother, sat in a nearby armchair. She wore light blue with a modest scarf and a wide smile on her face. "You ready, sweetheart?" April looked at her through the mirror. "Since the day he threw that Mandarin contract in my lap. Romantic for us it was." Across town, Adam was adjusting his collar in front of the mirror. He wore a dark blue suit, burgundy tie, polished shoes, and a flower in his lapel picked by April. He was nervous. Logan, now promoted to director of the April Johnson Institute, walked in with 2 cups of coffee. "You got 3 minutes to run if that's what you're thinking." "I'm not." "So, you ready?" "For the first time." "Yes." Logan stepped closer. "Never thought I'd see you like this. Human, relaxed, smiling for no reason." "April does that. She doesn't just change contracts. She changes people." "And you became people?" Adam laughed. "I think so. I'm even breathing better. The ceremony started at 11 a.m. In the foundation's garden, there were wooden chairs with simple cushions, colorful napkins, flower arrangements chosen by the kids, and live music, violin and accordion. Among the guests were young graduates, moms from social projects, activists, Witmore staff, non-profit workers, and people who had crossed paths with April and Adam along the way. When April walked down the makeshift aisle, everyone stood. But it was Adam who nearly lost his breath. April walked confidently, alone, because no one needed to give her away. She was already whole. When she reached the altar, the two of them locked eyes for a long moment, like someone finishing a book and realizing they want to read it all over again. The officiant, a kind man with a Colombian accent, began. Today we're not just celebrating a wedding. We're celebrating a choice of two people who came from different worlds, but chose to walk forward in the same one. April held Adam's hands. I thought about writing elaborate vows, she said. But the love I feel for you doesn't fit into big words. It fits in the simple things, like waking up and remembering you exist, like knowing that even when I stumble you'll laugh first, then help me up. Everyone chuckled. Adam spoke next. I came from silence, from numbers, from perfection. But you shook up my order. You tore through my logic and you built poetry in the middle of my structure. I don't want to understand you. I want to walk beside you until all the translations run out and only pure love remains. Donna wiped tears. Logan, too. Even Sylvia pretended to rub her eyes. I now pronounce you life partners, said the officiant. And if you'd like to seal it with a kiss, that's up to you. They kissed gently, deeply, truly. The reception was outdoors, with food prepared by women from the project. There was yakisoba, empanadas, falafel, tacos, jollof, rice. A true union of flavors. The music ranged from fado to jazz, salsa, bolero, even K-pop. April danced barefoot. Adam followed, missing steps, stumbling, happy. They couldn't stop laughing. Later in the day, they sat alone on the foundation's front steps. So, now we're officially, Adam began. Crazy married. I prefer partners in crime. He held her hand. Ready for the next chapter? What's that? Travel. We'll take a month. No work, just us. You, me, and maybe a dictionary. If you can't help yourself, I'm in. But on one condition. What's that? That we spend at least one night in a place where no one knows who? We are. Where no one says, there's the vice president, or that's the CEO turned activist. So what will they say? He asked. There go two crazy people in love. Adam smiled. Deal. In the months that followed, the April Johnson Institute expanded to 3 cities. Over 2,000 young people were directly impacted. Universities started referencing the model, and companies began reviewing contracts with the help of social linguists. Even the UN invited April to speak at a conference on language and inclusion. But she hadn't changed. She still took the subway, still answered messages from students, still laughed out loud, and still wore a blue pin in her hair. Adam, too, had changed. He learned how to cook pasta and how to listen without immediately trying to fix things. He learned to wait for answers and to understand silence. One night, lying on the couch with her head in his lap, April asked, Do you still think our worlds are different? I think our worlds collided and made a new one. Does it have a name? Love. That's cheesy, but you smiled. I did. On the wall of their home, a mural of photos was surrounded by a sign that read, Here we speak the language of courage with a heart-shaped accent.